Welcome to the GSP Stadium here in Nicosia, Cyprus, site of today's women's match between Canada and Italy coming up shortly. But we'll begin by talking about Canada versus Armenia in men's competition yesterday. Gavin, obviously disappointing results for the men, a 3-1 loss to Armenia. What did you take away from that game?
There's really not much you can take away from it. They got in on Monday. Some of them didn't even get in until late. They had 2 training sessions where it was really just to shake out some tired legs because many were playing on the weekend. It was all about the game, but obviously, you know, when you have very little time to come together as a group, there's really not much you can do, especially coming up against a team like Armenia, which has had a bit more time to settle, get reacquainted with the players, and then put out 2 performances. They had a completely different team against Serbia the day before they played Canada. But honestly, they got a game in. I think that was the one positive you can take from it, to just keep at least somewhat familiar with the Canadian players around them.
I think we should add that the Canadian players and coaching staff were, of course, disappointed by their performance. They would have wanted to do a lot better for the country. But as you said, under the circumstances, very difficult. Armenia, of course, were here training for a week in advance of that match. So a disappointing loss, but we move forward to June and the friendly against the U.S. and potentially a closed-door friendly ahead of that. What can Canada take away from this camp as they start to build towards the summer?
You can sort of see as this is something of a baseline where, with very little time, a squad scrambled together and with whoever is available to play. Come June, it's going to be a completely different story. It will be a much more better barometer of where Canada is. They'll be able to train, you know, at least a week, I'm guessing, before even the U.S. game. You've mentioned another friendly. Come Cuba in June, which is really what it's all to play for. This game, in the grand scheme of things against Armenia yesterday, matters nothing. What matters is June, what matters is Cuba and Honduras, and then will be the real test, because Canada will have a team they want. They'll have all the European-based players, all the North American-based players. They'll have their best squad, and then we'll be able to judge where they are.
If you thought Canada's road through CONCACAF to the World Cup was going to be easy, think again. Some excellent results in CONCACAF yesterday. USA beating Italy, Cuba lost very narrowly 1-0 away to Bolivia, and Jamaica defeated New Zealand. So, Gavin, on the world stage, CONCACAF really showing its cutting edge right now.
It's really growing. I mean, you can look at, obviously, the top 2 World Cup spots. You can almost hand them to the U.S. and Mexico, but outside of that, there are some teams that are coming along. Honduras, I don't think, is as strong as they were as the 2010 World Cup team. They're in sort of a bit of a rebuild. Jamaica's progressed. I think the most dangerous team in Canada's group is going to be Panama, because they've made leaps and bounds in the last few years. I think their coach, Dili Valdez, is one of the best coaches they've had in a long time. He's a former player. So, you know, CONCACAF picking that last guaranteed spot and that playoff spot is going to be tough to choose.
Certainly much to work on for Canada. On a bit of a lighter note, covering Canada abroad is always a bit of a challenge at the best of times, and last night, Gavin, we had a new chapter in the experience. We were locked in the stadium for about an hour in Limassol, Cyprus. The lights were off, we were in the press box working away. Next thing you know, we can't get out. Fences and barbed wire, 20 feet high, truly locked in until Gavin bent back a metal door and got us out.
Yeah, well, we were trying to find our way out, and amazingly, they somehow were nice enough to keep the lights on for us, even though they were trying to turn them off immediately after the game. But I guess they didn't figure that we'd eventually want to get out of the stadium as well. So we did that quick lap around the stadium, checking every door we could. We ended up in the moat at one point between the stand and the field. And then we go back to that end door, and I sort of realized that one of the tabs isn't fully down, lift it up, and we're able to jimmy the door open and escape. So every trip I have covering Canada, it seems there's always something that we get to remember. But it was just a funny experience, and yeah, something I'm not going to forget anytime soon.
All in a day's work covering the men's national team. As I mentioned, it's going to be Canada, the women's national team, taking on Italy here shortly. We'll, of course, have full coverage of that. Gavin, thanks as ever for your time.
Thank you, Max.